ghost children possessing giant robots? Thanks for the heads up.
A scared safety officer is unscrewing the vent to an air pipe, expecting to escape from something. The camera container over a bunch of screens showing different rooms in a family diversion focus considered Freddy Fazbear's Pizza joint, like Hurl E. Cheddar's. The gatekeeper is caught and taken out. At the point when the watchman recovers cognizance, he finds he is lashed to a seat. A bear-formed veil with sharp cogwheels and springs is gradually brought down onto his face as he shouts. A shopping center safety officer named Mike Josh Hutchison is holding up in line to get some lunch when he sees a man gather up a young lady and divert her. Mike seeks after the man and savagely handles and beats him. It turns out the man was just the young lady's father, and Mike is terminated. He meets with a lifelong guide, Matthew Lillard, who extends to him an independent employment opportunity as a night safety officer at Freddy's. The guide makes sense of that Freddy's has been shut since the 1980s, however the proprietor won't sell and holds a solitary watchman so to ensure no one vandalizes the spot for the time being. The instructor considers this will be a decent qualified for Mike since he will not need to cooperate with others, taking note of Mike's long history of being terminated from occupations. Mike declines, saying he isn't accessible to work night shifts. Mike gets back where there's a removal notice on his loft entryway. He enters and expresses greetings to the sitter, Max, Cat Connereal. He welcomes his more youthful sister Abby, flute player Rubio, who is occupied with drawing. Mike is raising Abby all alone. That evening, Mike nods off under a banner portraying a Nebraska timberland and standing by listening to a tape of nature sounds. In Mike's fantasy, he is with his folks and a more youthful sibling named Garrett. They are exploring the great outdoors in the forest in Nebraska. Mike forgets about his sibling while they play, and when Mike at long last finds him, Garrett is being snatched. Mike is feeble as Garrett is driven away in a more odds vehicle. The following day, he goes to a gathering with his Auntie Jane, Mary Stuart Masterson, and Jane's legal counselor. Jane is attempting to get authority of Abby, possible so she can get the public authority help for raising her. The case manager sides with Mike for the time being, taking note of that he is in the focal point of the multitude of pictures that Abby draws, demonstrating he is the focal point of Abby's reality. Notwithstanding, the case manager advises Mike that he really wants to set a task up to keep care. Having no way out, Mike calls the vocation advocate and acknowledges the night security work at Freddy's. Mike leaves Abby in Max's consideration and goes to the shut pizza shop. Mike finds and watches an old tape that shows Freddy's as a great family climate. Mike is surprised when he tracks down a little sculpture of an inflatable kid in a storage. He before long nods off and again dreams of his Garrett's kidnapping. This time, nonetheless, a gathering of children wearing creature or privateer ensembles is in his fantasies. Mike asks what their identity is, however the kids take off. Mike awakens and returns home. Cutting to a cafe, Jane is meeting with endlessly Max's sibling Jeff. It just so happens, Jane employed Max to glance through Mike's assets while minding find implicating proof Jane can use against Mike in the authority fight. Max says that Mike doesn't have anything to stow away, other than he rests an unusual measure of time. Once more Jeff and Jane then, at that point, create an arrangement to scour the pizza shop so Mike will be terminated. That evening, Mike brings the Nebraska banner and tape of nature sounds to his work and nods off. Entering his fantasy of Garrett's kidnapping, he again experiences the bizarre youngsters. The children again take off, yet Mike gets one of them and requests they let him know what their identity is and what they know. The youngster scratches Mike on the arm with a privateer connect before he wakes to the sound of somebody at the entryway. Mike opens it to track down Vanessa, Elizabeth Lale, a cop whose beat covers Freddy's. She heads inside and obviously knows the spot, saying she went there as a youngster and it used to be the most joyful put on the planet. Vanessa noticed that Mike has a scratch on his arm, in a similar spot he was scratched in the fantasy, and gauzes it. Vanessa says that Freddy's was closed down after certain children disappeared there during the 1980s. She then takes Mike to the amusement room and turns on the power. There, various animatronics power up. There is Freddy, a bear, Chica, a chicken, Bonnie, a purple shaded hair, Saucy, a privateer fox, and Mr. Cupcake, a more modest animatronic that is a talking cupcake. The animatronics sing and move before the power goes out. As the pair leave Freddy's, Vanessa makes reference to that no safety officer has at any point endured in the gig. After the couple leave for the afternoon, Max, Jeff, and 2 of their companions break in. They start taking resources and wrecking the spot. The animatronics stir and start moving off the stage. One of the companions tracks down Chica and Mr. Cupcake. Chica tosses Mr. Cupcake at him and it eats his go head-to-head. The other companion is followed and ultimately killed by Bonnie when the animatronic crushes his head more than once into an entryway. Mr. Cupcake and Charming catch Jeff, and he's subsequently seen dead in a room with spare parts. Max sees a youngster going through the pizza joint. She follows the youngster into a room where she sees the Freddy animatronic. The youngster's voice calls out from inside the animatronic and Max strolls over to get a superior look. Freddy then shows some major signs of life and eats Max down the middle. The following day, Vanessa comes by Mike's home and meets Abby. She educates Mike regarding the break-in and claims he left the entryways opened. She then, at that point, hands Mike a container of his dosing pills she tracked down there and inquires as to why he has them. Mike trusts that he's actually racked with culpability over Garrett's snatching. His folks passed on before long, passing on him to deal with Abby. He's been deliberately compelling himself to dream about the snatching with the expectation that he'll recall some piece of information that will lead him to track down the abductor. He makes sense of that by nodding off, taking a gander at the Nebraska banner and paying attention to nature sounds he saw and heard at the hour of the episode. He can drive himself to dream of the kidnapping. He says his fantasies have never been just about as striking as when he's been dozing at the pizza shop. Since Max isn't anywhere near, having been killed, Mike is compelled to carry Abby to Freddy's. Yet again, subsequent to making it lights out time for Abby in a little pad stronghold, tidying up the harm brought about by the break-in, and getting frightened by the inflatable kid sculpture, Mike nods off. Abby awakens before him and starts meandering the pizza shop. In Mike's fantasies, he inquires as to whether they are the ones who were snatched during the 1980s. They affirm that they are. Whenever he asks who stole them, they highlight a drawing of a hair they made in the soil. Mike is then awoken by his sister's shouts. He races to track down her, encompassed by the animatronics. Be that as it may, they aren't going after Abby, they are stimulating her. The animatronics plainly like Abby, and she gives them embraces and pictures she made. Returning, Abby says that the animatronics are possessed by apparitions, and the phantoms are making the animatronics move. The following evening, Mike and Abby return to track down Vanessa, as of now there. Obviously Vanessa realizes the animatronics are conscious. The people and animatronics mess around. Mike at last carves out an opportunity to have a confidential talk with Vanessa. She resents Mike for carrying Abby to Freddy's. To demonstrate the way that hazardous the animatronics can be, she takes Mike a back room. There are the creature external shells and electronic skeletons that are set inside the shells. The shells are locked to the electronic skeletons utilizing a spring instrument that clasps onto the skeleton, consequently the veil with pinion wheels and springs toward the start. Whenever braced onto a human, it would clearly kill them. She then cautions Mike to quit searching for Garrett's abductor and never to take Abby back to Freddy's. Not able to allow up on his work and opportunity of figuring out what befell Garrett, yet additionally reluctant to jeopardize Abby, Mike calls Joan and gets her to keep an eye on he goes to work. In his fantasy, one of the puzzling kids at last consents to converse with Mike. The youngster affirms that they are the very kids that had been stole like Garrett, and that they are currently the apparitions who have the animatronics. The kid offers to allow Mike to have cheerful dreams where Garrett and Mike's folks are as yet alive. All they need in return is to play with Abby, until the end of time. Mike at first acknowledges the arrangement, however at that point adjusts his perspective. The children assault him in the fantasy and, when Mike stirs, he is taken out by Charming. In the meantime, Freddy appears at Mike's condo and takes out, or conceivably kills, Jane. He requests that Abby accompany him to the pizza joint to play, and she concurs. The pair get into a taxi, blowing a gasket the cabbie, appearance by Corey Kenshin, Williams. At the point when Mike recuperates, he is tied to a seat with the executioner Freddy veil from the start of the film being brought down onto him. He figures out how to escape with the guide of Vanessa, who bafflingly shows up. Vanessa makes sense of that a man named William Afton made Freddy's and wore a yellow rabbit suit to kidnap and kill youngsters, including Garrett. At the point when police started researching, he concealed a portion of the kids' bodies in the animatronic suits. At the point when William figured out that the youngsters' phantoms later had the animatronics, he undermined them into thinking he was their dad. Mike understands the risk Abby is in and requests that Vanessa assist with saving her. She sorrowfully says she can't help, however gives Mike data en route to slip into Freddy's. Vanessa likewise says the animatronics can be weakened by power and gives him a taser. Mike slips into Freddy's and looks as Chica takes Abby to a back room. Mike tases Freddy and Bonnie prior to following Chica into the back room. There, he sees Chica and Mr. Cupcake attempting to stack Abby into a puppet-like animat.
Balloon Boys. I wonder if Mike is going to find him in the vents soon.